To Catch a Predator, as well as Hansen vs. Predator, has no doubt kept our society safer by identifying child predators. But did you know the programs likely prevented murders from occurring as well? There have been a small handful of predators featured on the programs who seem to have even darker intentions than just child predation alone. In this video, we'll look at a few of such cases. We begin with Stephen Buchanan. Buchanan, who was 27 years old when arrested during the sting in Fairfield, Connecticut, was an Iraqi war veteran who was trying to find work as a police officer of all things. He struck up a sexually charged conversation with a decoy posing as a 13-year-old girl named Bailey, but things got off to an even creepier start than what's usual for the show. He expressed his affinity for guns to the decoy during their online conversations. Though this raised many concerns, the producers decided to proceed with the sting. Buchanan made his way to the address provided by the decoy and circled around the property several times before approaching the front door. The decoy greeted him at the door, but expressed her fear of letting him inside if he had a firearm with him. Eager to ease her fears, Buchanan demonstrated to the decoy's satisfaction that he did not have any concealed weapons anywhere on him. Though still visibly nervous, she proceeded to invite him inside. This was when things went from sick and creepy to downright terrifying. What happened next put the production team, as well as the police, in a situation they had never anticipated. Buchanan flat out refused to come inside. Instead, he insisted that the decoy come outside and get into his car. This caught everyone off guard, especially the decoy. Despite his unnerving insistence to remove her from the relative safety of the sting house, she stood her ground and handled the situation like a champ. After he made multiple attempts to draw her away from the property, Chris Hansen finally intervened. Hansen approached Buchanan at the front door and asked him to come inside for a little chat. Surprisingly, Buchanan complied with Hansen's request. When Hansen asked Buchanan what he was planning to do with the decoy, Buchanan went on to list a handful of the usual BS excuses so many other predators try to bitch after being caught red-handed. Perhaps the richest example of his utterly pathetic attempt to save face was the story he told about a female cousin of his. He claimed his cousin met an older man online, and they eventually met up at her house. Forceful, non-consensual relations followed. He followed this story by stating that because he had served in the military, he had a particular disdain for older men pursuing minors. Not only was this statement a non sequitur logical fallacy, but it was also a bit ironic when considering the picture as a whole. If you followed Hansen's Predator series, you'd be hard-pressed not to notice the seemingly disproportional amount of predators who were current or former members of the military. I'm very curious as to why so many child predators have a military background, but let me know if you'd like me to explore that in a future video. Back to Buchanan. After telling Hansen the story about his female cousin, he claimed the real reason he wanted to meet her was to warn her against doing what his cousin did. This lie was utterly obliterated when Hansen started reading Buchanan's chat log with the decoy. Hansen then confronted Buchanan about a nearly identical conversation he had with a different decoy from Perverted Justice who was posing as another 13-year-old girl by the name of Brittany. Now that he knew he was caught, he referred to his actions as a, quote, horrible lapse in judgment, which I would call the understatement of the millennium. He tried to explain his perversion as being the result of PTSD from his time serving in Iraq. While combat-related PTSD is a very real and tragic consequence of war, there's absolutely no evidence that the psychological trauma of war can make an otherwise normal person suddenly attracted to minors. Moreover, his claim of suffering combat-related PTSD turned out to be a complete lie as well. It eventually came out that Buchanan was a tank mechanic who went on 0 missions and never saw any combat whatsoever. Following his confrontation with Hansen, Buchanan was arrested. He confessed to the police that he had a legally registered gun in the trunk of his car. While it was true he was legally authorized to possess a loaded firearm, the fact that it was with him while he was attempting to commit a crime turned his possession into a potential felony. But the most disturbing aspect of this case were the other items they found in tandem with the gun, including a camera, a knife, and a roll of duct tape. Police often refer to this grouping of items as a kill kit. The fact that Buchanan sought out multiple would-be victims, combined with his possession of an apparent kill kit, led the police to suspect that they may have just captured a serial killer in the making. Furthermore, his apparent attempt to abduct the decoy only reinforced their suspicions. Lastly, his added precaution of casing the joint so thoroughly, circling the property multiple times before approaching the front door, suggests he may have been planning to commit a crime with far more serious consequences, like murder. While this is pure speculation, there are two noteworthy points that should be made. First, the overwhelming majority of predators featured on the show did not display this creepy joint casing behavior. Second, this behavior is commonly associated with abductions, as well as violent crimes including assault and premeditated murder. Either way, it paints a pretty grim picture. All these factors combined certainly give the appearance that he had more in mind than just a sexual encounter. Buchanan was charged with 3 felonies: attempted risk of injury to a minor, attempted criminal second-degree assault, and attempting to entice a minor in an obscene act. Unable to make his $1.1 million bond, he remained behind bars until his trial. At his initial hearing on October 20th, 2015, he pled not guilty on all charges. His trial was held almost a year later in 2016, ending with him finally changing his plea to guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to 8 to 10 years in prison, which would be suspended after 3 years. He was also given 10 years probation and was required to register as a sex offender for 10 years. He was released from prison in January of 2019. Assuming he stays out of trouble, he will remain on probation and the sex offender registry until 2029. In 2022, Hansen attempted to contact Buchanan to be on his podcast titled Predators I've Caught. Hansen dialed the number, and the call was answered by Buchanan's father. His father politely told Hansen that his son had moved on with his life, that he was looking strictly to the future and wished to leave the past behind him. His father then asked for Hansen not to call again, a request to which Hansen respectfully obliged. Needless to say, Buchanan's dream of becoming a police officer never came to fruition. However, our next predator was a cop when he was arrested. 41-year-old Todd Monroe Spikes had enjoyed a fairly long career as a law enforcement officer, having served in several police departments in Alabama and Florida over the years. He was caught in the 2006 sting held in Flagler Beach, Florida. He began a highly explicit chat with a decoy posing as a 13-year-old girl named Lindsay. While much of their conversation is too graphic to mention on YouTube, what he said after the decoy told him that she lived with her mom demonstrated an additional form of sexual deviance on top of his attraction to minors. As there was no father in the picture, he expressed a twisted desire to move in so that he could be lovers with both the girl and her mother. When it came to planning a face-to-face meeting, he proved to be very non-committal, so much so, the production team was under the impression that he wasn't planning to show up. Unbeknown to them, he was already en route, driving 350 miles to the Sting house. When he had made it to the Flagler Beach area, he used a payphone to tell the decoy he'd be there shortly. That was at 1 o'clock in the morning, by the way. Just like Buchanan, he circled the property multiple times upon arrival. It appeared that he may have seen something that clued him into the fact that he was about to walk right into a sting operation because instead of parking and getting out of the car, he just started driving away. The police pursued him, pulled him over, and placed him under arrest without incident. He informed the police he was carrying a loaded firearm, which he was legally authorized to carry. He then stunned the police by brandishing his police badge. He was taken to the police station, and the police began to search his vehicle. What they found shocked them to the core. A chainsaw, ropes, tarps, duct tape, and a boat anchor were discovered, all the necessary items to ensure an inconspicuous watery grave in a coastal area. For some reason, there was no mention of the apparent kill/body dump kit during his appearance on the show. He had also been driving around with 3 cell phones, 2 bulletproof vests, photographic and video cameras, and an impressive arsenal of weapons and ammunition. It's important to mention that he was legally authorized to carry around each one of these items while he was off duty. However, the fact that he had this combination of items on him when he had gotten to the Sting house strongly suggests an intent to kill and dispose of a body. The police were quick to express their feeling that they had just dodged a bullet by arresting Spikes when they did. At the station, Spikes refused to answer any questions without a lawyer present. This move no doubt played a role in his absurdly lenient sentence, but we'll get into that in a moment. Spikes was fired from his police department 3 days after his arrest. He was charged with multiple felonies, including 2 counts of using a computer to transmit harmful material to a minor, which carry a potential of up to 15 years each. He was also charged with lewd and lascivious exhibition, possession of CP, and child exploitation, which is a 3rd-degree felony. While in jail, he befriended Daniel Kelly, another predator who was featured on the show. In March of 2010, he pled no contest as part of a plea deal to avoid a 20-year sentence. Shockingly, he was able to avoid prison time altogether. He was given a mere 10 years of probation and lifetime status as a sex offender. He was arrested once more in 2012 for a parole violation. While in jail, he got into a fight with another inmate. This altercation, alongside the parole violation, landed him a 3-year prison term. I've not been able to find any more recent information about Spikes, so perhaps he's learned his lesson. We can only hope that he continues to stay out of trouble and that he's trying to do something good with the rest of his life. Based upon circumstantial evidence, Buchanan and Spikes seem to stand out as the 2 predators most likely to kill. However, online forums are quick to point out that several others captured on the show have had lengthy records of violent crimes, including attempted murder. A prime example of this would be Pierre Wei. Wei had a tragic childhood. In his youth, he had been assaulted numerous times by several individuals, including his stepfather. His legal troubles began when he was only 14 years of age. His first infraction involved the assault of 2 13-year-old girls after getting them both drunk. This pattern of behavior would only worsen over the years. Following several similar infractions, he was sentenced to serve 2 years in juvenile detention. After 1 year, it became clear that he needed more extensive psychiatric help than could be provided at the detention center. As such, he was committed to a mental institution. While there, his schizophrenia was misdiagnosed as Asperger's syndrome. This misdiagnosis led to his release from the mental hospital when he was 17. From there, he began working as a prostitute, as well as using and selling crack cocaine. In 1981, at the age of 23, he was arrested for shooting a man in the neck. Fortunately for his victim, this did not result in a fatality. For this, he was sentenced to a mere 3 years in prison. He racked up convictions of several other violent crimes after this, but kept receiving sentences tantamount to a light slap on the wrist. It was clear that this man was more than capable of murder. How such a violent and dangerous repeat offender was always allowed to so quickly re-enter into society is quite beyond me. While the tragedies of his childhood no doubt played a role in what he grew up to be, compassionate sentences do very little to deter such violent tendencies. They only serve to make our society less safe. Admittedly, during the sting operation where he was caught, the police never found any evidence to suggest he was planning to kill anyone that night. However, his past demonstrated his proclivity toward horrifically violent behavior, as well as a willingness to take another's life. The facts that he was free, had access to the internet, and such a lack of oversight that he was even able to attend a face-to-face meeting with the decoy speak to the shortcomings of our legal system. It should come as no surprise that quite a few of the other predators exposed on the program have shared similar pasts and a proclivity toward violence and an utter disregard for the sanctity of life. We'll never know with certainty what would have happened if these dangerous individuals had never been caught. All things considered, it strikes me as more than reasonable to conclude that Hansen's work over the years very likely did prevent murders from occurring at some point or another. Unfortunately, we'll never know just how many. I must admit, I don't particularly enjoy covering the topic of child predators. It's a dark and disgusting and just a really heinous, despicable form of evil. However, I was absolutely blown away by how well my other predator videos performed. Looking at my analytics, it's clear to me that there's a lot of interest in this subject matter, so I'd probably have to be an idiot not to revisit it from time to time. That said, I have a ton of my usual mystery-type topics in the works, and I'm really looking forward to knocking those out. I also have some more good news. I finally got my monetization back, so thank you everyone who watched that playlist and who helped me get the watch hours I needed. I actually ended up getting something like 14 times over the amount of watch hours I needed. So anyway, I'm just incredibly grateful to everyone who helped me get that back, so thank you so much. That's all I got for this video. I hope everyone is doing well, and we'll see you soon. Hey everyone, Drew here from Mad Cat Mysteries, and I hope you enjoyed the video you just watched. If you did, you can click on the subscribe button below. I'd appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.